I prepare a lot of clergy tax returns for pastors, missionaries, and other clergy members. Actually, I used to be a clergy member myself with a large nonprofit organization. I've seen thousands of clergy tax returns, and there is one mistake that is by far the most common mistake made on clergy tax returns. In this video, we'll cover what that mistake is and how you can avoid it. We'll also talk about two other related mistakes that are fairly common as well. Please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so that you're notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching. The number one mistake that I see on clergy tax returns is the failure to pay self-employment taxes on ministers' housing allowance. Now, why does this matter? Let's say that your minister wages are $60,000 per year, and that $25,000 of this is minister's housing allowance. If you fail to pay self-employment taxes on the $25,000 MHA, then you are underpaying your taxes by about $3,300 every year. The IRS generally has 3 years to catch this mistake. If they do, the tax for 3 years of this mistake would be about $10,000. By the time you add in the penalties and interest, this could be north of $15,000. And that's a pretty large hit to your personal finances that would take most people a fairly long time to recover from. Now, if you have filed Form 4361 and opted out of Social Security, which clergy members are able to do if they meet the qualifications, this mistake would not apply to you because you are not subject to self-employment taxes. However, far fewer ministers are choosing to opt out of Social Security these days based on what I've seen. I see this mistake on self-prepared returns and returns prepared by the big box chain tax preparers. However, I also have seen this mistake made by qualified and otherwise competent tax professionals. The reason is because the tax code is massive. Here's an example that I give to a lot of people. If you have heart trouble, are you going to go to a cardiologist or are you going to go to a podiatrist? Right? You're going to go to the cardiologist. Doctors focus on specific areas because no one can know everything. The same is true with the tax code. There's far too much information to be an expert on all of it. Clergy wages are extremely unique. The W-2 that you receive does not look like any other W-2 out there. You are an employee for federal income tax purposes and for legal employment purposes. However, you're self-employed for Social Security and Medicare purposes. You're not self-employed in the traditional sense, but you pay your Social Security and Medicare taxes in the same way as self-employed people. This dual status is very unique, and it will confuse any preparer who's not familiar with it. Your W-2 will have wages in Box 1. Usually, but not always, it will have federal withholding in Box 2. Then Boxes 3, 4, 5, and 6 all deal with Social Security and Medicare wages and should be blank or zero for clergy employees. Box 14 does not have to, but almost always will have the amount of MHA listed in it. If your W-2 doesn't look like this, it's very likely that your church or organization is not preparing it correctly. Or it could be possible that you may have been a quote-unquote normal employee for part of the year and a clergy employee for the other part of the year. Now, how do you make sure your tax return is prepared correctly and avoid this costly mistake? You need to compare your W-2 to the tax return. So go get your W-2 and then find page 1 of the 1040 tax form as well as Schedule SE, self-employment tax. If you are single and have no other self-employment income or W-2 income, or if you're married and your spouse doesn't work, then this is going to be a little bit easier. Otherwise, you will have to do a little bit of extra adding and subtracting, but at least it's all first grade level math. Remember our example. We have $60,000 of total wages, $25,000 of which is MHA. In this example, Box 1 on the W-2 should be $35,000, which is the portion of your wages that are subject to income tax and excludes your MHA pay. That $35,000 in Box 1 of your W-2 should agree to line 1 of your 1040 tax form, which is labeled Total Amount from Forms W-2 Box 1. If that line includes $60,000 instead of $35,000, then you are paying income tax on your MHA, which is incorrect. Now, I rarely, if ever, see that mistake. Next, you need to go to the Schedule SE form. Line 2 of Schedule SE should be $60,000 in our example. This is the $35,000 of wages from Box 1 of your W-2 plus your MHA, which is most likely shown in Box 14 of your W-2. It's far too common that I see $35,000 on Form SE instead of $60,000. That is what results in the underpayment of self-employment taxes. Many people know that their MHA is quote-unquote tax-free. However, what they fail to realize is that it is tax-free in regard to income taxes. It is not tax-free in regard to self-employment taxes, which are the Social Security and Medicare taxes. Minister's housing allowance is a great benefit that reduces your income tax. However, it does not reduce your Social Security and Medicare taxes, and making this mistake can cost you significantly. The second mistake that I see related to this issue is failing to pay self-employment taxes on the entire amount. I don't see this quite as often, but there are plenty of times that I see someone simply fail to check the right boxes, perhaps in TurboTax, to make sure that they pay self-employment taxes on their clergy wages. A third mistake that I often see is the failure to include or exclude the correct amount of MHA for income tax purposes. Yes, MHA is not subject to income taxes. However, you only get to exclude the lesser of 3 numbers, and most people fail to understand that they have to look at all 3 of these numbers every single year. I have another video on that common mistake, so we won't go into too much detail, but here are the basics. You have the amount of MHA designated and paid to you, which is probably in box 14 of your W-2. This is the amount of pay that your employer designated as MHA. The second number that you have to look at is the amount that you actually spent on qualified housing expenses. And then the third number is the fair rental value of your furnished home. You can only exclude the lower of these 3 numbers. That means if the lower of these 3 numbers is your W-2, there probably isn't much else that you need to do or worry about. However, if the fair rental value or the actual amount spent is less than the W-2 amount, you have to add back the excess MHA to your taxable wages. This almost never happens with self-prepared tax returns from what I've seen. My recommendation is to find a professional tax preparer who understands these elements of clergy taxes and make sure that you ask enough questions to confirm their understanding. Unfortunately, many small business tax preparers will sometimes take on work that they are not experienced in because of the pressure to make enough money to provide for themselves and their families. Whether you hire someone or you choose to prepare your own tax return, now you know what the top 3 mistakes are, and you know how to look at your tax forms to make sure that you aren't making them. If you found this video helpful, please share it with other friends who are also clergy and help them avoid these costly mistakes. Thanks for watching.